Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. We have Kristen in the green room. Kristen, there's a link in the private chat area if you want to watch the show live, but having you connected back there is going to slow down the video feed because of it's using bandwidth. Unless you are planning on being on the show today, and I didn't know that, I'd appreciate if you use that link to YouTube to watch the show live. We have a great show today. And I want to say this up front before we start the show. This is a peer-reviewed study. I get in trouble with YouTube quite often whenever we do shows about this topic, and they ban my show for a week at a time. And we just talk about research on this show. We talk about research, valid peer-reviewed studies. So I hope that the misinformation gods don't punish me today. But with that being said, we have a great show. Long haul COVID is a big problem. And I'll tell you, after reading this paper, I wonder that if people who had very, very mild symptoms actually may experience some of these problems we're going to discuss today. So this is really, really important, not just if you have valid long-haul COVID symptoms, but if you've had COVID in general, do you notice things changing? Your ability to recall memories, to search for words. You wake up in the morning not feeling as good as you did before you were sick with COVID, maybe brain fog. I read a paper this morning that shows that shedding hair is now an after effect of having COVID. So if you had COVID and your hair is thinning all of a sudden, you're just losing hair in gobs. It's like you can't figure it out. I happen to know people who have mysterious rashes from COVID that started months after they had COVID. So this is a fascinating and complex discussion when we talk about COVID. Before we get started, I have to thank our title sponsor, and that's Legendary Foods. shrnetwork.biz/legendary will get you to their website. Use the code SHR10 for 10% off. They made the Pop-Tart healthy to eat. They reimagined it. It's less than 1 gram of sugar, 20 grams of high-quality protein, 4 to 5 net carbs, and your children will eat them. So now that school's back in session, you can send these with them in their lunchbox, and they will think they're eating the same garbage that their friends are eating, but they're really not. So check them out, show them some love. And now, without further delay, I'm being joined by Professor Shai Efrati from Tel Aviv University. Welcome to the show.
Hi, happy to be with you.
Tel Aviv is a beautiful city. I've been there a couple times. Very, very nice. I love it there. I almost made Aliyah. I almost came to move there. It's so beautiful. But anyway, okay. So I found out something fascinating off the air when you and I were talking. You actually started this research before we even knew there was a long-haul COVID, right? You started this research 2 years ago.
Yeah, you are absolutely right.
Why? Why did
I'm the head of the research and development unit in one of the biggest hospitals in Israel. The name is the Shamir Medical Center. And something like 2 years ago, when COVID started, we all research were saying, "Oh my God, what is going on? Let's understand better." So we all made a huge change in the research program that we have, and we focused on COVID. And the focus of my research group was not on post-COVID. The focus was to understand how the immunological system is working. How do our immune system react which are the antibodies that are going down, up, when they are going up, how we can measure that, what is the best test to do that, etc., etc. And in that study, we took people who had COVID, and we evaluated the different antibodies. So many of the diagnostic kits that we are using today were actually evaluated by us that time. But we did it for a long term, meaning we wanted to see how much time the antibody will stay up, will still be high, so we can say when the infection was. And then we noticed something very weird. Okay, we had in this study, we had people with severe COVID, but we also have people with mild COVID, young population, not very old. And when they came to recheck of their antibody and the immune system, let's say 6 months after, 9 months after, they complain. And we listen. That's the only thing we did. We just listened. And many of them complain on cognitive decline, that they are not able to read and concentrate the way they used to do before. They cannot read email. Instead of replying to 100 emails per day, they are replying to 1 or 2. They cannot sleep at night. Suddenly they have anxiety. Suddenly their mood is changing. And these are young population. Everybody's working. Everybody are fully committed. And we said, oh shit, what's going on? What's that?
Mm-hmm.
The general perspective at that time that this is all psychological issue because of the stress of the COVID and the burden of the work. And, people are isolated and things like that. But
afraid, distressed, they're afraid, yeah.
And all of this stuff. But we said this is probably more than that. And what I did at that time, I said, we're going to focus on that. There's something happening over here. We need to learn better and understand better what's going on. And by the way, when I did that, many of my colleagues told me, Shai, what are you doing? Why are you investing so much resources in that? It's a psychological effect. It will disappear. It's just a psychological issue. And I said, I don't know, but we need to investigate that. And it happens to be, unfortunately, I'm saying unfortunately because we were hoping it was nothing.
Right.
Unfortunately, it happens to be that this is a big issue. And today, 2 years after, we understand better what is going on. And this is not a psychological issue. Psychology plays a part always, but this is not a psychological issue. Mm-hmm. To make a long story short, what we understand today is that the virus can penetrate, and our focus is on cognition. That was the focus on our first study. Now we have additional studies on the cardiac function and other stuff, but we will focus on that. This is the study that was already published. Today we understand that the virus can penetrate through the cribriform plate, which is the part of the bone in our scalp above the nose, which is penetrated, and this is how we smell. The virus can penetrate through that, attach to the neurons that we have in the brain, inject the genetic material into the neuron, and then this neuron is malfunctioning. This is one thing. The second thing, in the brain, in addition to the neurons, we have a supporting cell. We call them glia cells.
Right.
So the virus can bind to receptor, ACE2 receptor on the glial cells and cause gliosis, inflammation of the glial cell. And then the infrastructure, the supporting environment is damaged. In addition to that, in some of the unfortunate patients, the virus can penetrate the bloodstream, and through the bloodstream it can reach the brain.
Well, and once it's in that area of the brain, it bypasses the blood-brain barrier. So it's like a Trojan horse. It's in there now.
It's in there. And if we are speaking about the frontal lobe, this is the part of the brain just in the front of our brain. This part of the brain is responsible for attention, working memory, information processing speed, but also our personality is there. Okay, our mood, what we call mood, is there. We want to think about ourselves as a superior creatures. We have a soul, we have a mind, but at the end, there is a tissue between those two ears, and this tissue determines who we are and how we function.
Right.
And once this tissue is damaged, then you have a wound, and we can demonstrate that wound. And once we realized that, we said, okay, we are dealing with brain injury. We are dealing with a non-recovering wound in the brain. So what can we do about that? And we need to use something that is familiar for us because we don't have time, okay? And people are suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the next level. But this is how it all started. So when we started, we had our definition of long COVID. And the definition that we defined is patients who have persistent symptoms for more than 3 months. We were focusing on the cognitive, but of course there are also other issues that are coming up now.
Well, a major one is fatigue. And those of us, so we talk a lot about exercise, physiology, building muscle in this audience. And 9 years ago, I did talked about a study. Fatigue starts in the brain. It doesn't start in the peripheral muscles. It starts in the brain. So these people, what part of the brain is it attacking that's making them feel tired and fatigued all the time?
We call it, there are two types of fatigue, exactly as you said. There is what we call mental fatigue, and this is the most common symptoms in the post-COVID patient. It's a mental fatigue, meaning your ability to exercise your brain is significantly declining. Mm-hmm. And this is not a certain part of the brain because this is the ability to exercise the brain. The output is cognitive function, is awareness, is alert. Okay. So once that is damaged, then you have a fatigue because you cannot get the maximum as before from this tissue. Okay. So it's not a specific location. So that's why it's so common because
it's collateral. It's part of the collateral injury, in other words.
Yeah. So this is the mental fatigue. In addition to that, you can have specific things that are related to specific area in the brain. For example, there is a high concentration of ACE2 where the virus is binding in the insula. Now, the insula in the brain, for example, is the part of the brain that is responsible for interpreting the signal that are coming from the body. Now, if the signal that is coming from the body is malinterpreted, people are feeling pain, even though there is not really problem where the pain is.
Right.
And some of the patients that we had couldn't walk, okay, and things like that. Not because, and you can do muscle biopsy, you can do EMG, you will find nothing. Because the problem is in the brain, in the part of the brain that is responsible for the interpretation. It's just like we will have an alarm, but there is no fire. But still, the alarm is annoying, okay?
Right.
So all the symptoms can be related to different part of the brain, depending what this part of the brain is responsible for. Okay?
Interesting. Very, very fascinating. So, and I'm going to put this question up because it was proposed by someone who's watching the show live. When you say the virus is in the brain, do you mean the active virus remains there indefinitely, or it does its damage and it's gone?
First of all, we don't know if identically because we don't have the data yet. And anytime we want to evaluate something in humans, we need, especially if we need to take a tissue out.
Yeah, how can you biopsy the brain?
Yeah, that's a bit problematic. Yeah, but today we have enough patients that, for example, had COVID and unfortunately didn't make it. Okay.
Oh,
and in this patient, we can do autopsy, meaning
cadavers,
post-mortem evaluation, and then we can see the virus in the brain tissue. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have learned a lot during those 2 years. So when we are saying penetrating the brain, we mean it. We can see the virus in the brain. How long it's going to be there, we don't know, but it can be a week, 2 weeks, 5 weeks. In any case, at the end, we are dealing with a damaged brain tissue. And that's what we need to recover. We need to repair the wounds that were caused by the virus.
So what made you go to hyperbaric oxygen therapy? Because that's what your study focused on, right?
Okay. So once we understood that there is a wound in the brain, we said, okay, wounds in the brain, there is a tool that we're using. I'm the head of the Sagol Center for Hyperbaric Medicine in Israel. This is the largest and most advanced hyperbaric worldwide. We are treating more than 350 patients per day, just for the perspective. And we started something like 20 years ago, a research aiming to regenerate damaged brain tissue.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning, the first studies were on stroke patients and patients who had mechanical injury to the brain, what we call traumatic brain injury. To make a long story short, with a certain protocol, it's not the standard protocol that is used. With a certain protocol of hyperbaric, we are generating fluctuation in the oxygen, going up and down in a very specific manner. And by going up and down, going for very high oxygen and then doing a fast decline back to the normal, we can actually stimulate stem cells that we have in the brain. We call them neuronal stem cells.
Right.
These stem cells are located in the hippocampus. So this is one thing. The other thing, when we are going to very high oxygen and then doing a fast decline, is that by that we are triggering also generation of new blood vessels. Today we can specify by functional imaging of the brain, functional MRI, brain spec, these are functional imaging of the brain. We can identify tissue that can be repaired with this certain protocol. And I must emphasize again, this is not a tube that you are going in and lying in. It's not sack full of air like many in the US can buy over the YouTube or Amazon or whatever it is. This is not it. It has to be a multi-chamber. You are going inside, going to 2 atom, mask on, mask on. It's a very specific protocol. It's not the sacks. It's not the tube. It's not that. Okay, I don't want anybody after this show going on Amazon and buying some.
Buying a hyperbaric, yeah, I know, because they sell them now. They have them. They look like tents.
No. I know it's absolutely not that. Absolutely not that. And people should never ever go into those sacks full of air. They are unsafe, ineffective. I know people are using my name over it. It's not it. Totally it. Okay, that's not it. Okay.
Right.
So by doing this certain protocol of fluctuation, this is what we call the hyperoxic hypoxic paradox, meaning we are inducing things that happen during lack of oxygen with extra oxygen. We are stimulating stem cells in the brain, generation of new blood vessels, and by that we can repair a damaged brain tissue. But before doing that, we need to specify whether there is a tissue or a wound that could be repaired. And we can do that. And once we are doing that, then we are repairing that. And of course, the symptoms that related to that wounds will resolve. Not because we are treating the symptoms, because we are treating the tissue, because we are treating the wound, the unrecoverable wound that we have in the brain.
This bipolar hyperbaric oxygen therapy, is it effective for other tissue in the body or only exclusively the brain?
It's, of course, when we are stimulating the stem cells, it can happen in other tissue in the body. Our main focus is on the brain.
Yeah, I understand that. But I mean, this...
For example, you're absolutely right. For example, in post-COVID, many complaints that suddenly it's hard for them to do the same exercise as they did before. For example, they used to run 5 miles, and then suddenly today, after 1 mile, they're breathless, okay? This is not the mental fatigue. This is a different type of fatigue. To make a long story short, you don't see it in a standard echocardiograph, but in another study that hopefully will be soon published, we see that the muscles of the heart is also being damaged in a way that the heart cannot contract, cannot have the specific movement for the maximal efficacy. And these people are feeling that it's hard for them to exercise or to perform physical performance in the same manner that they did before. So the standard echo doesn't demonstrate that, but if you are doing a specific high quality or high resolution echo that you can see the strain, the way it contracts, you can see the damage. And in another study, we are evaluating that, and soon the good results will be published also with regard to that.
And this is what I'm asking you right now. And I can't, because of this person's security settings, I can't see. But they're asking could this modify and renew muscle stem cells? But we're talking about the heart. So I guess this type of bipolar hyperbaric oxygen therapy could have other merit for people whose heart was damaged from the COVID, or any incidents where renewing heart muscle or even skeletal muscle. I mean, this seems to have widespread application, right?
Yeah, but we have to focus on what we know, okay?
Right.
Things that we know and things that we still have to study. With regard to the brain, in the study that we have done, it's a prospective, randomized control with a placebo group, okay? We were hoping that the placebo group will have a significant improvement just as part of the natural history. Unfortunately, today we know that the long COVID patient with the symptoms, this is unrecoverable if it's 3 or more months have elapsed. And people are getting used to their limitations.
Yeah,
it's not
right. Yeah,
it's not that the problem is resolved. They're getting used to writing in a notebook. They're getting used to go to sleep at the midday and things like that. But it's not that they're improving. Unfortunately, we were hoping differently.
So that raises my next question. We know, we've talked about on the show over the past 16 years, but more recently, the past 8 or 9 years, that certain nutritional styles hurt or help the brain. There have been studies done on low carbohydrate diets over periods of time, actually making the brain young again, giving people better efficiency, better executive function with their brain. So have you looked at, or would you look at, the non-responders to the bipolar hyperbaric oxygen therapy? And I'm sure there are some non-responders, right? I mean, you must have some people that don't respond well to this therapy. And look at their diet, because we know that along with the microbiome and gut permeability seems to follow the blood-brain barrier permeability, and maybe they're being redamaged every day because of their lifestyle, and then the hyperbaric oxygen isn't going to make up for the fact that they come in and do their therapy and then they go home and they redamage because of what's happening inside their body physiologically. Does that make any sense to you?
I will try to answer your question in a very simple way. As somebody who is actually practicing, and I'm speaking about myself, intermittent fasting for more than 5 years. Okay, good. As somebody who is actually practicing, we call it KetoFlex, which is a unique keto diet that we are doing together with other nutritions. Okay, as somebody who is doing that, I also know the limitation of that. Okay, it's good for the brain, but unfortunately, there are some times when you have real wounds that you need the extra. Okay, and the extra, unfortunately, hopefully we didn't need the hyperoxic hypoxic paradox as we are using. Unfortunately, we need that. Now, of course, there were some patients with symptoms that did not recover, but this is because of the type of wound that they have in the brain. For some of the patients, the degree of the damage is already necrosis, meaning necrosis is already
dead tissue. Yeah, it's dead tissue.
There's nothing there, okay? Right. Being filled with fluids. And unfortunately, when we are studying the non-responder or the non-respondent symptoms related to the brain tissue, necrotic tissue in that area, okay? So that's the reason. It's not because of the diet. And again, I recommend intermittent fasting. I recommend to do the keto. That's irrespectively. That's a way of living.
Right.
Okay, the way we need to live.
Right.
But for this kind of wound, non-healing wounds, it's not enough. We need more than that.
Okay, so let's talk about more than that for a second. There are some things like intranasal peptides. I'm actually doing a show in October about a new one called A1RCT that has shown some amazing results in seizure, even Alzheimer's disease, and traumatic brain injury. That, puff in the nose, and like you said, just the way the virus gets into the brain, it gets right into the brain. Also, peptides like PE2228, which has been used predominantly for anxiety and depression. By the way, it has a 4-day effect. I mean, in people that were on antidepressants, which take weeks and months to acclimate, the results of 4 days, and it seems to rewire the brain, because after 28 days, they no longer need anything, SSRIs or anything. But it's also showing promise in TBI. There are a lot of these new things that upregulate, growth factors in the brain, help recollect, because we know the brain is plastic, it has high plasticity. And we know that from stroke patients, there's a recollateralization around the injured area. You think for those people, there's any hope to harness some of these new therapies and help the brain get over by regrowing around the necrotic tissue?
I will start with general perspective. First of all, we need as many effective tools in our toolbox as possible. Okay, so everything that will be found to be effective in a prospective randomized controlled trial, this is great. This is great. Okay, whatever we can use is great. Until that point, to the best of my knowledge, none of the treatment have been found effective in a prospective randomized controlled trial. If it will be proved effective in a randomized controlled trial, that will be great. We also evaluate plenty of stuff all the time. Okay. I always tell to my students, we are the best physician of mice and rats. Okay. We can cure everything in mice and rats. Unfortunately, not everything is happening to work on humans. So we need to evaluate that. But if any of those interventions will be found, and hopefully it will, we need it. Hopefully it will, then we can find and select a patient. Some of the patient will react to that. Some of the patient will react to that. Maybe the combination of stuff can bring better than a single intervention. So I'm in it. But again, we have to be careful. We have to evaluate things in a prospective randomized control trial with objective measurements, and if it's working, then it's great. When it's great,
we're gonna take one commercial break. When we come back, I want to ask you your opinion of senescent cells in the brain, and they seem to play a role in the rapid viral overload of COVID. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with more. You're watching and listening to Superhuman Radio.
Dogs should be powered by fat and protein, not carbs. That's why Visionary Pet makes low-carb, ketogenic dog food for dogs of all breeds and life stages. From kibble to freeze-dried and even low-carb treats, all Visionary Pet recipes are very low-carb, ketogenic, and made with 100% real meat protein. Shop now and use code SHR for 20% off your first order today. Your dog deserves the lifelong benefits of optimal nutrition. Make the switch to Visionary and see why smart dogs eat low carb.
There have been no new innovations in men's underwear for hundreds of years. That's all about to change with Sheath. Sheath creates 2 separate compartments for your man stuff so it doesn't get smashed into a mound and sweaty and stinky. I won't wear any other underwear now that I've learned about Sheath, and you won't either. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Sheath underwear. That's SHEATHUNDERWEAR. Use code SUPERHUMAN to save 20% off. I promise you, once you try a pair of Sheath underwear, you will never wear anything else. Never before has a product been so appropriately named as Botanic Tonics Feel Free. This plant-based elixir combines a variety of different effective compounds, all from raw plant materials that at different doses provide you with completely different experiences. A third of a bottle puts you in the zone and makes you very focused and is ideal for a non-stimulating pre-workout. It also has a mild analgesic effect for us older lifters who have soreness and little pains and aches that keep us from training as ferociously as we want. A half a bottle will create a mild euphoric effect that will allow you to forego consuming alcohol but still be socially lubricated and have fun. I have never had a product deliver on its name the way Botanic Tonics Feel Free does, and I won't ever be without it, and you shouldn't either. Go to shrnetwork.biz/feelfree and use the code SHR40 for 40% off your first order. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. GHKCU is one of the most effective peptides for rebuilding more youthful skin, reversing skin damage, diminishing wrinkles, and tightening loose skin. I personally use Restoracell with GHKCU every day. It's making an undeniable difference in the quality of my skin. Restoracell is fantastic for all types of skin. Now you can order Restoracell and save 25% when you use the code SHR25. That's SHR25. While you may be diligent in your workouts and your diet, don't neglect what people see first and foremost, and that's your skin. Go to shrnetwork.biz/blue and use code SHR25 today. Remember those rectangular toaster pastries you used to love when you were a kid? Well, Legendary Foods has just made them better. The new cake-style tasty pastry is like nothing you've ever had before. With 20 grams of high-quality protein and less than 1 gram of sugar, you'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use the code SHR10 to save 10% off your purchase of tasty pastries. Now available in cookies and cream, red velvet cake, birthday cake, blueberry, strawberry, brown sugar cinnamon, and hot fudge sundae. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use code SHR10 today.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where brawn and brains finally meet.
Welcome back to Superhuman Radio. We're talking with Professor Shai Efrati from the University of... Is it Tel Aviv University or University of Tel Aviv?
Tel Aviv University, yeah.
Thank
Tel Aviv University.
We're talking about COVID, long COVID specifically, and a potentially effective therapy using hyperbaric. I like to call it bipolar hyperbaric because, you know, you're high-low. Bipolar hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which could really help a lot of people. But it sounds to me like you got to go do this type of a thing pretty early on, because the longer you accept your new normal, the harder it is to effectively reverse the injury, because the tissue becomes necrotic, and that's it. So Dr. Mikhail Blagascloni, who used to be a frequent guest on this show, who started using rapamycin and sirolimus for anti-aging purposes to rid the body of senescent cells. And then Dr. Michael Lasanti, who now is in the UK, United Kingdom, both came on this show during COVID and said that senescent cells are where this virus likes to set up shop to produce more replication of the virus. This virus uses reverse transcriptase, and it likes these senescent cells. They're zombie cells. It sets up there and it just reproduces. And they, back then, they proposed that using some senolytic drugs that rid the body of senescent cells, even even zithromycin has been approved here in the United States by the FDA. Literally one 5-day round of a Z-Pak can remove 95% of the senescent cells from the body, but it doesn't work in the brain. The rapamycin doesn't get in there, the zithromycin doesn't get in there, and so we have a different situation. Now, we know that senescent cells in the brain are triggered by glucose signaling, and we know that diseases like Alzheimer's disease is an energy-based disease because the brain becomes insulin resistant, glucose can't get in, and you lose functionality of the brain. What about intranasal, maybe rapamycin, that can get into the brain and maybe vanquish the senescent cells, and then the virus has no place to live?
I will say one thing about rapamycin, and then I will refer to the senescent cell.
Okay.
With regard to rapamycin, the main problem with rapamycin, this is immunosuppressing drug. Okay. We give rapamycin, for example, for patients who have kidney
organ rejection. Yeah, organ rejection.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why do we give that? Because we don't want the immune system of the body to react against whatever we put inside the body, for the foreign organ that we put inside the body.
Right.
So generally speaking, this is immunosuppressant drug. It has its side effect. For example, if you are on rapamycin and you will get a COVID infection, today we know that people on immunosuppressing drug are at high risk for the severe disease from the COVID itself. Okay, so it might be that it works, it might be not, but it has to be evaluated appropriately to see the risk-benefit value of using rapamycin.
Okay, let me inject here. Let me hold your thought. Blagascloni came on this show and said that rapamycin is misunderstood. It doesn't fight organ rejection by suppressing the immune system. And Lisanti came on and agreed with him on another show and pointed to, remember that cruise ship that wanted to come back to the United States, and they had a real big outbreak of COVID, and they weren't allowed to come back. There was a husband and wife. The husband, as you point out, he had kidney transplant, and he was on sirolimus daily, high doses, like 25. I mean, 25. The anti-aging group, they take 6 milligrams twice a month. This guy was taking like 25 milligrams a day because he had kidney transplant. Both he and his wife got COVID. He was better in 1 day. Now, according to what you said, his immune system should have collapsed and he should have been sicker. They let him go home. They helicoptered him off the boat. A day later, his wife was on that boat for 3 weeks. So I tend to believe, Blagascloni, that we don't understand how exactly rapamycin interferes with organ rejection, but it's not the immune system. That's what he said. So there you go.
I will tell you, I'm also a medical doctor, and one of my specialties, I'm a professor in the medical school and the neuroscience school, and one of my specialty is nephrology. Okay. So we know today, generally speaking, but I don't want to get into that. It might be possible that it's working, and that's great. If it will be found to be working in clinical study, that's great. Okay. One of the things that we know today is that people who are being transplanted and being given this sort of treatment are at high risk. Okay, so this is the general statistic. Okay. Maybe that in specific case it will do different.
Okay, what about senescent cells in general? Senescent cells in the brain.
Senescent cells are a problem. Okay, they are definitely a problem. Okay, the problem of the senescent cell, these are malfunctioning cells. Okay, that cause inflammation, that accumulate mutation, that can be developed into cancer cell, and they are responsible for the many diseases that we see that are the so-called age-related diseases or age-related functional decline. It doesn't matter if it's the brain or other tissues in our body. So the senescent cell play a crucial role in many of the pathology that we have in our body. By the way, this is not the topic of this call, but one of the things that we investigate, we have in our research institute, one of the most comprehensive studies ever done on what we call age-related functional decline. We are taking people at the age of 65 and older, healthy, okay? No stroke, no myocardial infarction, nothing. We evaluate everything in 1 week. The brain in functional imaging, cardiac MRI, skin biopsy, senescent cell, telomere, whatever you can think of, we evaluate. It's a full week evaluation. And then we randomize them into two groups, what you call the bipolar treatment, which is the hypoxic-hypoxic paradox, and a standard group. And for the first time, we were the first in humans to publish a randomized prospective control trial that demonstrate that with the fluctuation that we generate, we elongate in the telomere. And because we elongate in the telomere by more than 20%, okay? The first one in humans, because we are elongating the telomere, also the amount of the senescent cell is declining dramatically.
Wow.
Okay? So that's, you can read it in Aging. It's one of the good scientific journal related to aging. That's why you call it Aging. So you can read the article and see the results and know everything about it. So that's another topic. So the senescent cell are crucially important. By the way, in the US, we have affiliated center in Florida. Okay, it's called the Aviv Center. This is the biggest hyperbaric center in the US. That in addition to the treatment, we are doing a full evaluation that includes also the senescent cell, the telomere length. You can look at your brain in high function. So we don't know the exact relation between the senescent cell and the COVID, but it makes sense.
Right.
Okay? So we don't know if the hyperbaric treatment, one of the way that it works, it's because it reduces the senescent cell or elongate the telomere. We don't know, but at the end, we see the improvement. Another thing I should notice, because we know that hyperbaric, the bipolar treatment, as you say, I may adapt this phrase.
Please do. Yeah.
The bipolar, the hyperoxic-hypoxic paradox, is working on age-related cognitive and functional decline. In the study that we did for the post-COVID, we took young population, okay? The average age was 40. So we took only young population because we didn't want people to say that the hyperbaric is working because it's working on the age-related cognitive decline.
Right.
And in this population, there's not supposed to be high percent of senescent cell. But in any case, we want the senescent cell out. We want as minimum senescent cell as possible. And whatever tool that we can use, it's good. Okay.
So tell me the name of the place in Florida again.
The place in Florida, it's Aviv. The name is Aviv Clinic.
Aviv, like Tel Aviv. Aviv, okay.
Tel Aviv, Aviv. People can write Aviv Clinic. They can go on the website. And the most important thing related to post-COVID is to make the appropriate diagnosis. Okay? It's highly important to make the appropriate diagnosis. Unfortunately, most physicians today don't have the tool to make it because you need the type of brain imaging that you can see really the problem. You need cognitive evaluation. You need the testing. Even smelling, you need a specific test of smelling. You need to see the correlation between the smell. You need to see the correlation between the cognitive decline and what you see in the brain. You need to do a maximal exercise test, cardiopulmonary maximal exercise testing to see the amount of oxygen, to see your functionality. Only then to make the diagnosis. So the first thing is to make the diagnosis. Once you are making the diagnosis and you know what you are dealing with, then you can make the next step to make the decision. Okay, so that's what it is. Let's see what I can do with that. Okay. So in the Aviv Clinic in Florida, everybody can go make an appointment, have the full evaluation, have the diagnosis, and then make a decision, whatever you want to do.
So could I, if I don't have COVID, but I want to improve my telomere length, I want to be evaluated for I'm 64 years old. I want to be evaluated, and I want the bipolar hyperbaric oxygen therapy as a prophylactic, as an anti-aging. Can I do that?
Yes, of course. This is the core of what we are doing. Okay. The center is located in the villages. The villages, it's the biggest retired community in the world.
Great.
That's why the center. Why the center is located over there. And I don't call it, by the way, prophylactic. I call it a treatment because, our performance is the most important thing for us.
I agree.
And there is a phrase that we as physicians use, you can go to your physician, you can tell him, my dear doctor, I'm feeling that my cognitive, it's not the way that it used to be. Remind me what your name is.
Yeah, right.
And he said, oh, this is serious. Let's evaluate you. We will evaluate you. And then he can come back to you and tell you, you are not so good, but you are according to your age.
I hate that. For your age, your testosterone levels are fine. I don't want that. I want the cognitive function of a 20-year-old, not a 64-year-old.
That's exactly it. I call it enhanced medicine, meaning today in medicine, what we are doing, we are taking the people to the average of their age. Nobody wants to be according to his age. We want to function. So don't call it prophylactic. It's not prophylactic. You want to enhance your performance. And if there is a possibility to do that, then why not? Why not? If we can have a good cognitive decline, a good functional decline, a good sexual function, why not? Why not?
Could you put the people from Aviv in Florida in touch with me? Because I want to have them on the show so that they can talk about, how my audience can get involved. They can have these therapies used and so on. I really want to talk to them. I want to have them on the show.
No problem. I will be there, by the way, because all the team in Aviv Clinic were trained in our institute in Israel. Okay, so they were trained over here and now they are working over there. They are amazing people, and you have a multidiscipline team. You have physicians, you have physiologists, you have dietitian, what we just discussed about the intermittent fasting and the ketoflex. Okay, you are taking all the principle and everything is well evaluated. Telomere, senescent cell, looking at the brain. Okay, no discussion in a functional MRI, perfusion MRI, DTI. This is your tissue. This is your tissue before. This is your tissue after. Mm-hmm. And nobody will tell you that it's good that you are according to your age.
Yeah, I hate that.
Let's see what we have. Let's see if we can improve it. And if we can do better than that, then why not? Why not?
So earlier in the intro, I said there are a lot of people out there who may have had very few symptoms from COVID and they feel fine, but they could have modest changes in cognition that they just chalk up to, well, I didn't sleep good last night. Could this problem be a lot bigger than we think because we're not looking at the people who are clinically relevant for these symptoms? There are people up there that are just a little modest change.
This is another amazing point that you are raising up. This is our resilience. I call it the resilience. Mm-hmm. You are losing resilience. Okay, meaning a long life, shit happen. We get damaged.
Right.
And for that we need the resilience. So if we don't have this resilience, it means that you will not be able to function in a good enough way earlier. You may develop your dementia earlier. Okay. Mm-hmm. You may be unable to perform earlier. By the way, the COVID is a bad thing, generally speaking. It's a bad thing. I wish it wasn't here. But once it's here, there are so many good things about it. For example, now that we have patients that have damage in a certain area, we see the clinical presentation, we are learning so much about the brain and the functionality of the brain. Mm-hmm. Is unbelievable. We are making progress that we didn't make in years. Mm-hmm. And think that the COVID wasn't a global epidemic. let's say it was just the flu, tiny from time to time. Then you have another young person who unfortunately started to have dementia and cognitive decline. You will not notice that. You say, okay, I don't know what happened over here. I don't know what happened over here.
Yeah.
And groups and teams, research group like me, were not even noticing that or going into research into that. And we wouldn't never, ever make the connection. So one of the things that we are learning is that we have to be more humble, significant more humble in everything we are saying. Okay? This virus teaches us a lot. Teach us how a tiny virus can cause such a long-term damage. But we are learning. We are developing new method of treatment. And this new method of treatment can be used for brain repair. And if we are speaking about brain repair, this brain repair can be related to COVID. But as you just mentioned, it can be related also to other stuff, like something which is a bigger epidemic, like the age-related cognitive decline.
Yeah. Who knows? You find the secrets to age better because of the COVID epidemic. We're going to take our last commercial break. When we come back, I want to ask you if you think that hallucinogenics have a role because they increase neuroplasticity, they upregulate certain chemicals in the brain that seem to help repair the brain. And I know it's a far-fetched question, but it's a very popular thing right now that people are talking about. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Superhuman Radio. Don't go away. I would easily say that I am the hugest proponent you will ever meet to doing anything that will improve the quality of my sleep. And that's because sleep is linked to just about every metabolic disorder we see in our population today. One of the easiest things you can do to improve the quality of your sleep is to get a pillow that can be shaped into the exact form factor that allows you to get your best night's sleep. And that is MyPillow. I've been sleeping with MyPillow for a few years now, and I can tell you that when I have to travel and stay in hotels, I don't get a good night's sleep because I don't have MyPillow with me. Right now, you can save up to 60% off of everything offered to improve the quality of your sleep at shrnetwork.biz/mypillow when you use the code SHR. Or you can call toll-free 800-889-4938. And remember to use code SHR to save up to 60% off of everything at their website. P3OM from Bioptimizers is a patented prebiotic and probiotic supplement with Lactobacillus plantarum OM. It has now been upgraded to P3OM 2.0 with the addition of a superfood formulation that makes it 2 times stronger, as well as optimizes L. plantarum's strength. So it's more powerful than ever, which means that not only will it help you completely digest all animal proteins, it also reduces cortisol, causes deep relaxation and better sleep, and reduces stress. Go to shrnetwork.biz/P3-OM today and use the code SHR10 to save 10% off. Are you suffering from signs of an unhappy gut? Diversity is the key to healthy, robust inner ecosystem. Body Ecology probiotic liquids are made by fermenting organic seeds, biodynamic brown rice, and chickpeas together to create a diverse culture found nowhere else on Earth. It's the secret to restoring your gut's microbiome for a healthier digestive tract, improved immune function, and longevity. Take 20% off by visiting the website shrnetwork.biz/bodyeco, shrnetwork.biz/bodyeco, that's BODYECO, and using the code SHR20. There are lots of concerns about food supply today. That's why you need White Oak Pastures. White Oak Pastures will deliver food right to your doorstep. You don't even have to go out and be disappointed by shopping in grocery stores. The finest beef, pork, lamb, duck, and more can be found at White Oak Pastures. And now they even have seafood. And best of all, White Oak Pastures has a negative carbon footprint, which means that you don't have to feel guilty for eating your ribeye. Go to shrnetwork.biz/white oak and use the code SUPERHUMAN to save 15% off.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where we use oxygen for the power of good.
Welcome back. So, Professor, there's a lot of fascination about the effects of psychedelics, hallucinogenics, because they seem to have a powerful effect on upregulating BDNF that almost looks reparative to the brain, at least to the aging brain. You think there's any role for that in this discussion for the post-damage, the necrotic tissue, and any effects that you think might be there? You know, another tool in the toolbox, so to speak.
It might, but again, this is something that needs to be evaluated.
Right.
Because we may have the opposite also effect. It may be possible by too much activation on a tissue that cannot perform in the way that it's supposed to perform. Let's say, for example, the mitochondrial damage, and then you are asking the cell to perform in the highest way. It may aggravate the damage.
Yeah.
It may do good. It may aggravate. We don't know. We need to be evaluated. And like any stuff, if it's potent, you need to be evaluated, find a specific individual, characterize the individual that can benefit. And if yes, then hopefully we'll have another tool. But we need to study. There are plenty of things that we need to study, we need to learn, we need to specify who can benefit and in what way, what is the dosage, how much time, how many times you need to give it. And if it will work, it will be great. We need more. We just need more.
So I understand Aviv is in Florida, and you're going to connect them to the show, please, with Elisa, so that we can have them on the show. We'll have them on quickly, too. But do you foresee other clinicians wanting to be trained in the bipolar hyperbaric oxygen therapy and training other physicians to do it?
We're already doing that. So actually, the Aviv Clinic in Florida is going to be the education hub for other locations in the US, and soon we will have additional center. For example, hopefully next year, the center in New York, in Manhattan, will be ready, and soon additional one. But that will take time, but still, I must emphasize to everybody, the bipolar, how you call it, and I said I love the phrase, the bipolar is not the tube, it's not the sacks full of air. Don't buy on Amazon. Don't go to somebody's backyard and go into a tube. This is not it. Right. This is not it. Okay, once you will be on the Aviv site, you can look and see how it looks, and then you will understand the magnitude. Okay, right. But soon there will be additional center. But since it's a big center, the equipment is heavy. With high quality assurance, it will take time. But the Aviv Clinic in Florida, this is the education hub for the rest of the US.
Yeah, I want myself and Elisa to go there. I'm very selfish. That's why I want to have them on the show, because
you are welcome. I'm gonna be there on the week of the 26th of September, so you are welcome to come.
Yeah. I want to thank you first of all for making time. I know it's late in Tel Aviv, and for making time to come on the show. This is fascinating, and I hope you remember us when you have more research to talk about. Please.
Very good.
Take care.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
And that's it for me. I am going to a conference this weekend in St. Louis where Dr. Robert Malone and others will be speaking about what we've learned. And I'm going to talk to them about this. If I get Malone's ear, I'm going to tell him about this here, because this is fascinating stuff. So I won't be back until Tuesday. If any of you are going to be in St. Louis, message me on Facebook, and maybe we can connect. Okay, that's it. Remember, muscle is metabolic currency. So get into the gym and make a deposit today. The only research on humans that shows it increases longevity is the noble pursuit of muscle and strength. Building muscle is a therapy. So take care of yourself. All right, we'll see you Tuesday with more Superhuman Radio. Thanks for being here.